This week marks 10 years since the Coalition and the Greens voted down Labor's carbon pollution reduction scheme. And where do we find ourselves? Emissions are still going up, power prices are going up, and the promise of the CPRS, which was lower emission and better jobs for Australians and lower costs of power prices, has not been delivered. The implementation of the CPRS would have resulted in Australia's greenhouse gas emissions being between 27 and 81 million tonnes lower in 2020 than currently projected. 81 million tonnes. The CPRS was supported by Liberal Senators Sue Boyce and Judith Throeth. As printed in The Guardian today, my colleague Pat Conroy, the Shadow Minister assisting for climate change, gave a speech at the ANU. He says, and he is right, the Coalition and the Greens bear a heavy responsibility for the fact that a decade later Australia still does not have an effective policy to tackle climate change by reducing emissions." End of quote. So the Greens' decision to side with the Liberal and National parties to defeat Labor's CPRS in the Senate in 2009 was a massive error of political judgment with far-reaching consequences, Mr Acting Deputy President. We are facing a climate change emergency in this country, and this is undisputed. There is widespread agreement among experts about the risk posed by climate change and about the policy responses needed to reduce Australia's carbon emissions at the lowest cost to our economy. And yet there is now a breakdown in consensus on climate change policy in Australia. In the Northern Territory, Darwin already has an average of 22.2 days per year over 35 degrees Celsius, up from 5.6 days a century ago. Without rapid cuts to greenhouse gas pollution, in 2030 Darwin is likely to have 132 days, that is 4 months, over 35 degrees Celsius per year, and 275 days, 8 months, over 35 degrees Celsius each year in 2070. We have an ecosystem rich plant, animal and sea life in the Territory, carefully cared for by First Nations rangers. First Nations people have been looking after this land over nearly 60,000 years. And I do want to just talk about my community in the Gulf country, for the Yanyuwa, Garawa, Marra and Gurdanji peoples. The mangroves, Mr Acting Deputy President, the mangroves around the seabeds of the Yanyuwa sea lands are dying. And each time we go out on the water with the rangers, but even when I just took my family out there and I took a group of school students out there, the dramatic change in just a few months, and then certainly over the last 12 months, really frightens us, and it certainly frightens the elders, because we haven't seen anything like it. And when I speak to some of the old people just about what's going on there, there's lots of thoughts, but we are really fearful for country and the urgency that really is needed in many of our places. But I guess I speak particularly in this instance about the Anyuwar seabed and mangrove country. Traditional owner also Patsy Evans, she visited the site in the Gulf of Carpentaria recently as well, and just said, "This is bad, worse, it's unbelievable. I can't even believe what's happening here." And she said she wanted policymakers to see how climate change was affecting the land near the Limmen River area, 750 kilometres south of Darwin. And what she's saying is that we should go out and see what's happening, be aware and look at it, and don't make decisions where you are. So here I am passing on her call.
Order. Senator McCarthy, excuse me, just resume your seat. Senators, I'd urge to at least show the decency when Senator McCarthy is talking about her mob and the traditional owners of this land. Senator McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. So when Patsy Evans was out there in the Limmen Bight area, and she talked about that area of land and just the concern, and she just says, you know, go out and see what's happening. And she's talking to everybody. You know, go out and see what's happening, be aware and look at it, and don't make decisions where you are. And that urgency that she feels, and other traditional owners, not just in the Gulf region but right around the Arnhem Land coastline, across to the west, they are seeing the changes and are raising these very same things, especially the rangers who are working on country. So I'm certainly passing on the call of Patsy Evans. Find out what's happening in remote Australia. See how climate change is having an impact, certainly not just down here in the south, and we have seen tremendous examples which are just as frightening for people in the south. But please make sure you're checking out what's going on in northern Australia. Mangroves are a vital ecosystem. They are nurseries for the mud crab, barramundi and prawn fisheries, or they once were, where it was really abundant. But sadly in the Gulf of Carpentaria, the once vibrant mangrove forests consist mainly of dead trees and dusty earth. It is truly unbelievable. The few live seedlings coming through are exposed and vulnerable to damage from the fallen dead trees, and that means no bush tucker for people who may live many kilometres from the local stores, but just because they want to go out there and look after country. And Ms Evans also said that through the mangroves you get a lot of bush tucker, mud mussels and shells, and they're all dead, and it makes her feel really sad. Well, she's not alone with that. It's something that all the communities are talking about. Just in Darwin Harbour, Mr Acting Deputy President, there's a small island called Bare Sand Island, or Ngulbitjik, shaped like a teardrop. Here Australian flatback turtles have chosen their natural breeding ground, and the waters around Bare Sand Island support significant numbers of foraging green and hawksbill turtles, while the island provides an ideal habitat for breeding, with only a few jabiroos and some weedy plants posing a threat to the species. Still, only 1 in 2,500 hatchling turtles is expected to survive to adulthood, and both species are vulnerable to extinction under Australian classification. Global warming poses serious threats to sea turtle populations, since sex determination and hatching success are dependent on the nest temperature. Young and old people, Mr Acting Deputy President, are feeling the stress of climate change inaction from this government. According to a national survey of young Australians by Mission Australia into young people, the number of people who said the environment was a key national issue has more than tripled from 9.2% to 34.2% in just 1 year. In the Northern Territory, it's gone from 10.3% to 27.3%, and this is causing great stress to our youth. According to a 2010 report, Impacted Climate Change on the Northern Territory, if current emission rates continue, climate change is predicted to cost Australian households roughly $20,000 per year, and that's not including the impact of extreme weather events. Industry will be affected, such as cattle exports and also tourism. The NT cattle exports are projected to decline by 19.5% by 2030, and that's all due to climate change, 19.5%. And while in Kakadu National Park, and the lands of the Mirra people there, 80% of Kakadu's beautiful freshwater wetlands are predicted to be destroyed just in the next 50 years. The low floodplain makes it vulnerable to even minimal sea level rise. And in Central Australia, outdoor tourism during summer is already becoming hazardous. It's just too hot, simply too hot. We are facing a climate emergency in this country, and there is a breakdown in consensus on climate change policy in Australia. And Mr Acting Deputy President, people are waiting for action on climate change. And the people across Australia, and especially when we see students and so many people who come together calling on legislators, wherever we may be, they are calling on all of us and saying, please act, please look after country. And it's a call that's echoed by First Nations people when they look at country and see the changes, the dramatic changes. I see the different flood levels just in the Katherine region, in the Arnhem region and across to the west, And when you hear the old people talk about changes in weather patterns, you know that these mob have seen things that are unexplainable in terms of some of the areas, but we know that it is a climate emergency out there.